All right. Hello, everyone. Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to a very exciting webinar from Everybody Loves Languages, a Canadian education technology company that is always creating the most innovative solutions for language learning and helping different institutions all around the world succeed in teaching English and other languages. So today we feel extremely privileged and happy to present to you one of our latest, coolest, and most incredible language solutions that focuses on young learners. And my name is Vinny Nobre. I am the Director of Pedagogy at Everybody Loves Languages. And it is my great honor to be able to introduce this brand new product to you. So let me start by telling you a little bit about this product. Hopefully, you can all see my screen now. Um, and it is called English Academy Plus Junior. It is a very exciting product that will allow children from the age of 6 onwards to learn English and develop their language, communicative skills, critical thinking in a fun, engaging manner. It's a brand new learning solution that will really revolutionize the way that children learn. So let's look a little bit at how this course is structured. There's a lot of content, and it can be organized as a course. It can be organized as an extra resource for those of you who already have a course out there. And it's based on extensive movie content. I think that this is very unique because we all know as teachers how much children love stories and how engaging movies can be. In Academy Junior, Academy Plus Junior, we have the possibility to take children into this journey through the most famous, popular, incredible movies. Movies from Disney, Pixar, and they are all explored from a pedagogical perspective to allow children to develop not only their linguistic competence, but their overall communicative competence and other skills as well. From a language perspective, the course will focus on the four skills: reading, listening, reading, and writing. As you can probably imagine, the course, since it stems from movies, is filled with listening opportunities. And as educators, we all know how important it is for children or any language learner, but especially children, to be exposed to language, right? The input that they receive, and I mean, Stephen Krashen is one of the greatest advocates of the importance of input in language learning. The input that they receive can really help them develop their language skills. And we also know that the input can be more challenging than what the student can produce. And with children, this is even more authentic. This is even more of a fact because children, they don't have the affective filter that adults carry with them. So even if they don't understand every single word, they get immersed in the magic of the story with the visuals and all the scenes and all the other support that they will find in the movie to understand the big picture. And this will allow them to become more used to the English language in a very natural, fun, and interesting way. So listening is probably the strongest skill in this course. I mean, I wouldn't even say probably, it's definitely the most present skill in this course. And I can't emphasize enough how important it is for children to hear the language a lot and not just the language in isolation, but the language being used naturally, right? They pick up language like this, as we all know. But there are also opportunities for them to practice the other skills. There are activities, and I'm going to show you some of them that will encourage them to produce orally and in the written form, helping them become more confident speakers and more confident writers. So these activities are naturally graded to what the students can do. And we adjust not only the level of challenge, but also the type of activity to the age group and what they are expected to do based on their stage of development, right? As children, very Piaget-like. And there is also a little bit of reading that is presented, especially to children who are a bit older and who can already read. And with children who still don't have literacy skills, the the whole support in Academy Plus Junior is given through the spoken word, even though they will see the written word for them to get familiarized with that input and informally and unconsciously develop a little bit of their reading as they are also developing at school. They don't need to read in order to succeed in the course at the early stages. On top of that, we have added to the whole course and the movies highly interactive and gamified activities. There are avatars that the children can choose as they finish the lessons. They get a score that is presented like little stars and kind of like a badge that they receive. So there's a lot going on. There's also an underlying principle of project-based learning that becomes very evident at the end of the units. At the end of every unit, students are invited to create a project that will help them use all the knowledge that they gathered in that particular unit, whether it's linguistic or content related, to create a project that establishes goals in the real world and that will make them develop other skills like critical thinking, planning, revisiting, assessing, creating the blueprint of a project, and really going through all the different stages of project-based learning to ensure that the language works as a means and not as the ultimate goal. Because at the end of the day, we learn English to do something with English. And throughout the course, kids are invited to use English in a natural way. And in the project lessons, as we call them, they will have a whole structure of project-based learning principles that will encourage them to do that. We have alternatives for teacher mediation, and you will be happy to hear that this is a very flexible course that can be used in class with the teacher, and the teacher can either have students work in a lab, for example, at their own pace, or the teacher can use an interactive whiteboard or a TV screen to have everybody follow the same pace and suggest interactive activities throughout the lessons and the units. The teachers are supported with detailed lesson plans that will offer them ideas and suggestions of what can be done in class or after class. If the solution for you is not really the in-class option, you will also be happy to hear that this is perfect content for extended learning. So you can still continue with your regular course, with your existing content or course book, and suggest different lessons from English Academy Plus Junior to your students so that they can continue to develop English in a fun way at home in a more autonomous fashion. And for those of you who want to explore the content and the movies in class, the course comes with a range of printable materials that will provide students with further practice on grammar, vocabulary, and communicative tasks that can be done in class or even as homework. So what will you find there so that you can achieve all of these things? You'll find 8 different levels. Yes, that's a lot of levels, right? So English Academy Plus Junior is an 8-level movie-based program. And as I mentioned before, we have elements of language learning, of course, with Everybody Loves Languages technologies, which are quite unique. So we have the privilege, right? We have the possibility to make the learning pop out of the movies. And this, if you're interested, get in touch with us so that we can give you credentials for you to get a free trial and see how the activities are fully integrated with the movies, and they simply pop up on the screen in a very seamless fashion without having, to get students to go from one page to another or feel that they are doing two different tasks. Everything is combined seamlessly because of our technology. We have, as a huge attribute, of course, the possibility to use the movies for educational purposes. So we know how hard it is to have legal access to integrate this kind of content to courses. And with English Academy Plus Junior, this problem is solved. So you can use the movies without having to worry about the legal rights or how you can integrate it in an ethical way, because we have the rights and we can use the movies for educational purposes. By using English Academy Plus Junior, so can you. And it is also very important to remember that even when we have a movie that we like and we want to use in class, thinking about activities, finding the right scenes from that movie that will really foster learning, that will be relevant and meaningful to our young learners, can be a daunting task. It can be quite challenging. We've done the work for you. So in English Academy Plus Junior, all the activities, whether the digital activities that are integrated with the movies or the handouts that can be explored in class, have all been written for you. So we've already selected the scenes and the language that stem from the movies so that you can just walk into class and teach and do what you want to do and do what you do best. So, um, we as educators at Everybody Loves Languages, we believe that teaching should always go beyond the language. So, our main focus is, of course, the communicative competence of our young learners. And we work a lot with vocabulary, with grammar, as I mentioned, with the 4 skills, with listening, with reading, with writing, with speaking. But we also believe that when working with young learners, we need to go beyond the language and we need to help children to develop holistically. That is why in the whole course, we have added moments and activities and stages of lessons that will cater to the development of other skills. 21st century skills, cross-curricular skills, and we integrate these other areas and this other content with the language and the movies, creating a very robust learning experience to our young learners. If you're curious about some of the movies that we have out there, we have selected here some examples. Of course, we have a lot of movies. There are 8 levels. Each level has 5 different units. Each unit revolves around a movie. So we have 40 movies that are available for children to learn with and to learn from. These are just some examples, like Luca, The Lion King, A Dog Ways Home, Frozen, Encanto, Moana. Some of the classic movies, some of the recent movies that children adore. And most children will have heard or maybe even watched these movies. So I'm sure they will be excited to be learning with something that is already familiar to them, that they've already developed a relationship with. So the whole learning process will become even more welcoming and less intimidating because these movies are familiar and they are fun. They're not movies that were devised for the sake of learning. We know that sometimes when we create content like movies, videos that aim at teaching something, it is a little hard to nail the entertainment component, right? So there is the risk of creating something that is academically sound, but not very engaging, not very interesting. What you'll find here is a perfect balance between entertainment and engagement and passion and energy with very solid academic principles. What are some of these principles? What have we based our decisions on? Well, the first thing that we need to know is that we believe that children are naturally curious, uninhibited, and confident. What does that mean, and why is this relevant? Because a lot of people, especially people who may not work a lot with children, might be under the impression that the movies in English could pose frustration to children who are learning the language. We know that children are not as judgmental or critical or self-conscious as adults. We know that children, and if we think about it, I'm pretty sure everyone has an example of a child somewhere who loves to watch Disney movies. And if they can't find a dubbed version, they will still watch the movie the same way and will sing the songs and will get the overall message or the overall story without necessarily having to watch it in their mother tongue or in a language that they understand. There's so much going on, right? And children, as I mentioned, are so curious and they're so confident that they interact with this content without judging whether they will really get it or not. They're not afraid of making mistakes. So we can raise the bar and challenge them because they will probably try with much more enthusiasm, with much more ease than an adult, for example. They also learn languages more naturally. If you've been working with children, you know that they pick up language in a very surprising and oftentimes unexpected way. They will pick up words or expressions and we won't even realize that learning is taking place because it is so organic and it's so natural and it's just so um marvelous. It's great to watch, right? If they are exposed to input and especially authentic input, they pick up language effortlessly with the help of a teacher, with the help of our activities and the task design that we have created for this product. The learning is accelerated and children really develop. We also know that children have a natural talent. They are very skillful when they imitate pronunciation patterns. We know that children who learn English from a certain age usually pick up the sounds and the rhythm and the connected speech in a much more natural way. By being exposed to the most diverse accents, children will have the opportunity to really develop their pronunciation and phonological awareness. They can also understand a greater amount of language that they can produce. This goes without saying. This happens in their first language and is just as true as it is in a foreign language. Children understand much, much more than what they produce. So the fact that they are dealing with authentic movies should not pose a challenge because they explore nonverbal and visual cues very, very naturally, almost unconsciously. They have a repertoire of skills and they have an ability to understand what is happening without depending so much on words. So, this is what we count on. We have also some academic beliefs that have informed us in the design of English Academy Plus Junior and that are present throughout the course. One of these beliefs is that young learners really need a high degree of exposure, or as I mentioned before, input, so that they can hear language in a natural way. And this is what will eventually be turned into natural speech. And, young learners may not be able to produce it straight away, but they will be able to accumulate the knowledge and the patterns and the samples that they hear. And one day when we least expect it, they come up with a full sentence and we get totally surprised. But this can only happen if they are really immersed in very rich environments with a lot of input. It is also a fact, I mean, research shows that linguistic formal instruction, like teaching grammar or rules and patterns, is not something that works with children. They are they pick up the language more naturally, and they are not necessarily cognitively prepared to deal with the complexities of the formality of the system of a language. So we don't need to uh, bore them. I think that's the fair word to use with grammar rules and getting them to memorize the rules. They are not interested in that. It is hard for them to process this level of subjectivity. They need something that is much more concrete. So they pick up the examples and they reproduce the examples much more effectively than dwelling in the subjectivity of the language, right? And its systems. The focus, therefore, needs to be on meaning. And if you're working with movies and stories, it is just a natural thing to do. The meaning is there. It focuses on a very clear, interesting meaning that will make you curious and engaged because you're not memorizing 10 words. You are not learning how to say something that is not relevant, maybe to you. You are watching a movie. You are focusing on the message. And by focusing on the message, we are showing students that at the end of the day, meaning usually is stronger than the form of the language. And we also know and believe that learning to occur with children needs to have a good dose of playfulness. It is important to include play-like activities and fun and reinforcement and positive messages and variety. So children learn better when they are in an environment that resembles this kind of playfulness. How is our course structured? How do we structure English Academy Plus Junior? Well, there are 8 levels, as I mentioned, and these 8 levels are roughly associated with certain age groups. Why do I mean roughly, and why are these suggestions? Because at Everybody Loves Languages, we understand that contexts can be very different, and we don't intend to impose what kind of content will work better for the different and most diverse contexts that we have out there. So we know in some institutions or some cities or some countries, for example, children at the age of 6 will have certain learning expectations and a certain profile that might be very different from other institutions, countries, or cities. So the course was designed thinking that levels 1 and 2 would cater to children or young learners at the age of 6 and 7. Linguistically speaking, levels 1 and 2 focus the activities, right? The language that is highlighted, the language that students become more aware of is language that revolves around a pre-A1 level. Levels 3 and 4 have been designed thinking about what most children at the age of 7 and 8 can do. Their cognitive processes, their motor skills, and linguistically, it focuses on a 1.1 moving towards a 1.2. These 2 levels, right? Levels 5 and 6 will focus on children at the ages of 9 and 10, and linguistically, it pushes them towards a 1.3, a 2.1, and level 7 and 8, children at the age of 11 and 12. So we have more complex ideas, we have more subjective topics that children can cope with, questions that will get them to reflect a little bit more, and it focuses on the Common European Framework levels of A2.2, A2.3. So a student, a young learner student who joins the course from the beginning and studies with English Academy Plus Junior all the way to the end can go from being a real beginner, a pre-A1, to a level A2. Now, this, of course, will depend a lot on what your institution wants to do. If you want to spread English Academy Plus Junior throughout more years of study, this is absolutely possible. So there is flexibility in the content for you to design your own strategy on how you are going to explore the content that we have according to your specific needs and your specific context. And at Everybody Loves Languages, we know that nobody knows your context better than you yourself. So these are suggestions and recommendations that we make, but we are more than happy to work with you to design more customized and specific means or strategies to deliver this content, depending on your ultimate goals, on your context, how many lessons a week, for example, you have, or how many years you need to cover with the content. So there are different solutions that we can suggest and that we can explore together to make sure that this material will fit exactly your needs, right? And your context. Inside each unit, you will find lessons with different goals. In order to help teachers who are mediating the learning, the lessons have a very clear objective. And even though the structure of the lesson is the same, and I will tell you a little bit about the framework that we designed for each lesson, the overarching goal of the lesson will vary. So some lessons will focus on vocabulary building. So these are lessons that will bring words that are somehow related that you can find in the movies, of course, and will present and practice the vocabulary through the context of the movie, always contextualizing the language in a very natural way to allow students to learn and expand their lexical repertoire. So we work with words that are connected, creating lexical sets, and we also work with chunks. So we take a lexicalized approach towards language in these lessons, increasing the level of complexity of the words and chunks that are chosen according to the levels and the age group. Another goal that we can find in the lessons is focusing on structures. And here we have a combination of grammar and functions that are relevant to students at this age. The language structures, they are always selected according to what students are expected to do at that level, right? So even though the input that they are getting from the movie is varied and cannot be controlled, the language that we will highlight, that they will practice, that we will draw their attention to, is language that is appropriate for the level. This way, we are helping students rely on building blocks to develop their language. So they will gradually see these language items, put it together with the vocabulary that they will have seen in other lessons, and build blocks of learning. And once again, the language is naturally contextualized because the language comes from the movies. So it's very natural for students to see the connection between the structure, the grammar or the function or the vocabulary with what is happening, right? And teachers can really explore the scenes and can pause the videos and have students guess and show and point and use visual support to teach both the structures and the vocabulary. Nevertheless, we want the language goes beyond vocabulary and grammar, and we really believe in the power of culture in learning languages. Therefore, we have certain lessons that will develop students' awareness of their intercultural competence, that will focus on culture as maybe a fifth skill, right? As some authors say, culture as the fifth skill. We have reading, listening, reading, writing, and culture. So we understand that English is the lingua franca today. And people from different walks of life will communicate using English. We don't focus on British English or Canadian English or American English. We want young learners to be exposed to a variety of speakers who come from the most diverse backgrounds. And the movies, again, they can be a very, very rich lab for us to bring cultural elements to class and help students see how people used to live in the past, or how people live their lives in very cold places, for example, or how the educational system works in the USA. So all of these specific cultural characteristics that are so inherent in the movies, that are so naturally presented in movies, can be highlighted in class through the lessons that focus on intercultural awareness. The other three lesson goals that we are going to find in English Academy Plus Junior would be CLIL. We take a soft approach towards CLIL. I think it's important to highlight. We don't go for hard CLIL. So we integrate content and language without emphasizing too much the content. So the content and the language have the same kind of weight and importance. So some lessons will focus on maybe geography or history or maybe biology, allowing students to also become more aware of science and technology and mathematics and arts and engineering, so our STEAM components, creating cross-curricular connections that, depending on your context, can be expanded into other disciplines as well. If you work at a regular school or K-12 or a bilingual school, you might use this material as a perfect springboard for cross-curricular projects, because some of the lessons, they will very naturally get students to think about how they can use English to learn mathematics or to learn other subject matters. And also, of course, once again, in a very meaningful, natural way, because you have the movies as the backbone for all of this presentation. The other two lesson goals that we're going to find are listening and speaking. So these are very important skills, and we emphasize this a lot. We understand that young learners can really acquire speaking skills and develop their listening really fast. And these skills can then help them and better enable them to develop reading and writing. So they get exposed to phonics, different pronunciation features. The movies will be very, very rich for work on intonation. And I don't think there is any scripted dialogue for learning purposes that will bring such natural, authentic, fun intonation, examples of intonation. Characters, they get really surprised. They are funny. They can be sarcastic. And the movies will allow us to draw students' attention to how, pronunciation and all the other discourse features can be found in the way that different people speak, depending on their ultimate goal and the message that they are trying to convey. Last but definitely not least, we believe in storytelling, and some of the lessons really revolve around storytelling. We think that understanding how stories are told and the different genres that they are going to be exposed to, creating narratives, breaking down the plot, or exploring, their understanding of the overall message, can really help students develop their literacy skills, and become better able to identify main ideas, supporting ideas, infer meaning, and start working from, the understanding of the stories to producing stories, start working a little bit on their reading and writing with activities like spelling and dictation. If anybody wants to ask a question or make a comment, please use the Q&A or the chat to do so. I would be more than happy to address issues that might come up. So we have 6 lessons. So let's recap a little bit what we have, right? We have a course that is divided into 8 levels. Inside each level, we have 5 units. Inside each unit, we have 6 lessons. And each unit revolves around a movie. And the movie is explored in a sequence. So lesson 1 is the beginning of the movie. Lesson 2 is going to explore the second part of the movie, and so on and so forth. So if a student is doing the whole unit in sequence, they will basically just watch the movie and interact with activities and the language and culture and storytelling in a very natural, seamless, organic way. But the lessons, we understand that young learners and learning in general needs to be structured. So the lessons, all the lessons in the whole course will follow a certain staging process, right? A certain rationale for its staging. They will start with a moment to engage the learners by presenting a little bit the context of that lesson, the goals of that particular lesson, so that they can move on to explore a little bit the lesson objectives, whether they are lexical items, a list of vocabulary words, or grammar points, or functions, or a cultural feature. This is the moment for them to formally visualize what they are learning and explore these learning goals through the movie. Then we provoke them and we get them to really interact with that knowledge. So there are activities, interactive activities that will go back to the items that were presented in the previous phase, in the explore phase, for them to really interact and manipulate the language or the communicative feature. Finally, we believe in cycles of learning, right? We believe in revision and going back. So we go back and say, okay, this is what you've learned today. Let's review, let's recap. And students are invited to reflect a little bit on their own learning based using self-assessment tools that aim at fostering more autonomy, more independence, more accountability for their own learning. And this can be mediated by the teacher, or students can do it by themselves. So the lessons follow a certain pattern, but they have different goals, right? And they are sequenced according to the movie, and they are put together in a unit, and the unit revolves around the same movie. I hope it's clear. How do I see this? How do I organize this? Well, English Academy Plus Junior is introduced to students through a map that resembles a lot of games that they are familiar with, that will bring this light, playful idea that does not bring that density of some, books or learning materials. It is light, it is fun, it is interesting, it's playful. And each circle that you see there is the beginning of the unit. So the little avatars will show students what the unit is about. So, for example, the first unit is a unit that revolves around the movie Cars. The second unit revolves around the movie Luca. The third unit revolves around the movie Frozen. And the little dots between one unit and the other correspond the lessons. So each lesson will have a different goal. Each lesson will focus on either language or vocabulary or listening and speaking or intercultural awareness or storytelling or CLIL. So they all focus or use the same movie as the source of input, right? And the context for all the language presentation. So if students are using this in a linear way, the different worlds, the different units are locked, adding a little bit of a surprise element and gamifying their experience a little bit. So as they finish a unit, they unlock new units allowing them to conquer new worlds and watch new movies. So this is how their experience is managed from the course presentation. But the moment they get into a lesson, they are pretty much in a movie theater. They are presented with a very large screen that will show them bits and pieces of the movies and will integrate these bits and pieces with activities and interaction. So every lesson will start with a moment of introduction that will summarize a little bit the movie content for that specific segment. Maybe introduce the characters, tell them what they will be learning, and allowing the teachers and the students to visualize what the goals are and what is happening in that particular lesson. To engage them, we ask questions that are familiar to them, that don't necessarily intend to present language, that do not have a right or wrong answer, that focus on activating their schemata or getting their own opinion about something. Questions that are related to the topic of the lesson and the movie. So things like, what do you like to do on the beach? And if this is being used in class, this could generate a lot of fun activities or games as students discuss their answers, explain what they like, think about other possibilities before they watch the scenes from the movie and start doing the activities. So they engage with the general topic before they actually get down to it. Every lesson will have a limited number of 6 new items. In our research and in our decision-making process, we have identified that 6 is a good number of new items to be presented. These items could be chunks, could be words, could be concepts, could be, for example, characters if we are doing a lesson on storytelling. And they are presented through flashcards. So we use visuals and audio to present to students these 6 ideas, these 6 concepts, right? Um, so it's a moment to maybe pre-teach the vocabulary that they will either hear or see in the movie. The vocabulary or the language that is selected here is totally relevant to the scenes and will always have some kind of connection. So uh, here, for example, we are talking about the ocean, life on an island. So we're talking about things like turtles or coconuts. So there is always a connection. And the teachers, depending on the profile of the group, depending on their level of English, can decide to add more elements and stretch the teaching here, or focus on the 6 items that are presented. There are then lots of activities that will allow students to interact with this content. For example, by reviewing these items and helping them understand. And we take this, it may sound repetitive, for example, if you don't work with young learners, but if you work with young learners, we know that we need to go back and present and review the same concept in different ways, like really being creative. So we present the different concepts, they hear the input, they have to show them or at least assess themselves and realize whether they can identify the audio input with the corresponding image. And then we start watching the movie. So we prepare them with those concepts, with vocabulary, with grammar, and we show them a short scene. Scenes are quite short, but not too short. They are short enough to allow students to be engaged, but they are not too long because we don't want students to get bored or to be overwhelmed with input. So they are just enough for students to be engaged and for some input to be provided. And then a variety of exercises are used to involve students. like multiple choice activities. Where is Moana? And then, they can answer questions about either listening comprehension or vocabulary or grammar. So we use the same types of activities in different ways, giving students a sense of continuity and familiarity because the activity types are familiar to them, but adding variety because the questions focus on different things and they never really know the order of the types of activities. So it could be a multiple choice activity with images, a multiple choice activity like the one you can see now with sentences or complete words. It can be a pronunciation activity in which students have to interact with the characters, repeating things that they've said, the characters have said and that they've heard. So they record themselves and teachers can focus on intonation, pronunciation, connected speech. There's a lot of work that can be done here. Students can do this by themselves. They can do this in class and then afterwards repeat the activities by themselves. But they have the opportunity to really explore the language and start playing a little bit with the sounds. There are also activities that involve movement. If students are using a tablet, they can swipe right or swipe left to say whether the card corresponds to the question that they are being asked. So in this type of activity, for example, students get a prompt and they need to say right or wrong. So they play a little bit with the movement. And the questions here will vary. Sometimes it's a full question. Sometimes it's the word, and students have to say whether the image represents the word or not. So it's used in different ways. And as students are interacting with these activities, I need to remind you that they are watching the movie. So they will watch maybe 1 minute of the movie, an activity will pop up, they play very quickly, and the movie continues. Another activity pops up, they play a little bit, and the movie continues. So they're really watching the movie with very short, brief interruptions that don't really feel like interruptions because not only are they playful, they are also helping students understand the message and learn something new. So their brain is working all the time. Um, Another type of activity that we rely on, especially with higher levels, as I told you, we grade the type of activity depending on students' stage of development. With students who can already write and read, we have fill in the blanks like this with the focus on spelling and focusing on specific words that they hear. It's also a moment to review maybe grammar items, naturally vocabulary items. So there are different skills being integrated here. In storytelling, students kind of like start reading more complex ideas and interact with the input that kind of like reviews what's happening in the movie uh, by making choices. So they are kind of like creating the story based on what they see. So it's a simplified, graded version of the movie with interactivity. So as they watch the movie, they also read the story as it pops up, recapping what they've just seen and asking them to think critically about the overall message. A classic example of activity that also pops up in the middle of the movies to help students develop syntax, comprehension, review vocabulary, or general grammar structures is unscrambling sentences. Students have the opportunity to answer questions, complete sentences using their understanding of the structure by unscrambling in a very fun, playful way. They get feedback straight away, so they know what mistake they made. They can try again. So, and everything is really snappy and fun and light. Um, there are activities that will ask them to record parts of sentences. So we play a little bit with a multimediatic understanding of communication. So there are images that will get students to think about. It's like just a hint. So they have to understand, read the image, remember the story, record. So we gradually increase the level of complexity based on their level and their age. One of the most challenging, let's say, activities is a dictation activity in which students get a prompt and they need to write full sentences, allowing them to develop their listening skills, but also review syntax and vocabulary, bringing variety to their whole experience with the movies. This is probably one of my favorite activities that will pop up as well in the middle of the movie after children, and especially with the younger ones, after they've seen a scene, they've watched a part of the movie, they are asked to order mini parts of that scene based on what they remember. So they have like three small segments that are parts of what they've just watched, and they need to say what was the first, the second, and the third moment. This is a very, very rich moment for teachers to work on storytelling, understanding of gist, working with what if, right? Getting them to create different possibilities, giving them really the power to feel that they are co-authoring the story as well, right? So they play around putting them in order and they watch the scene again to check whether they were right or wrong. As I mentioned, we believe in revision. Students have the chance to review what they've learned. Remember, we have narrowed it down to a specific number of items. We don't want to overwhelm students with what they need to focus on or pay attention to. It's really up to the teacher as well to add other layers if they feel that their students can do it. They have a lot of material for that. They have the content from the movie, they have the PDF files, the worksheets that are available, so they can expand knowledge. But what students really have to focus on are those, let's say, 6 items per lesson that are more directly approached and presented. So they play a memory game to see if they remember what was presented. Um, and eventually they get to a challenge. The challenge, which is the last lesson of the unit, is a moment to formally assess students. At Everybody Loves Languages, we believe that assessment is a moment of learning too. It is not supposed to be a moment of stress, but it's supposed to be a moment of learning. So students are going to play as well. They're going to watch scenes of a movie. They're going to do the same activities in a playful way, revisiting the content from all the past lessons, from all the 6 lessons that came before, giving them another opportunity to recycle, review, expand, and giving teachers the opportunity to assess how well students are doing and maybe provide them with further practice or reinforcement, right? And it is also a moment for maybe families to see how well their children are doing, because it is the unit, oh, sorry, the lesson that summarizes the whole unit. Um, at the end of the level, as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, we have a whole moment that is inspired by project-based learning. It is a project that students will have the chance to build. It's a very hands-on moment. They are guided through the lesson on what they need to do, and then the teacher can play a very strategic role here, giving them the opportunity to really use the language that they studied in the whole level. So it's a combination of the key topics of the movie. So movies that talk about the environment or that talk about technology or about friendship. All of these topics are brought back in a project that will get students to produce something with the language. So it's a very authentic and natural use of the language, still being permeated by movies. So the scenes of the movies are brought back. Students have to, reflect upon the movies that they saw. So everything is very much contextualized. Teachers get a lot of support if you're using this in class or as extended learning, as homework, let's call it this way. Uh, Teachers can get lesson plans that will give them ideas on how to explore the movie scenes or ideas of activities that they can bring to class, printables, They also have a karaoke feature. Students and teachers can sing along. There is an extra karaoke feature that will allow students to sing some of the most famous songs from these movies. Teachers can play this in class. And really get a lot of resources to go beyond the digital experience. So they can really connect the course with all the social activities and the interaction that students this age can benefit from, right? This is just to show you a little bit the dashboard that teachers have access to. Students also have access to a dashboard. As I mentioned before, if you are interested in exploring this, please get in touch with us. We would love to give you credentials for you to try it out and really see all the features and all this rationale that I've shared with you taking place, like in action. But teachers get information about the students' performance, um, reports, and they can monitor this, how much students are doing. They can assign lessons to specific students, to entire groups. So teachers also have a lot of support for their own teaching and the monitoring of students. So all in all, I can say that English Academy Plus Junior is very, very avant-garde. It is very cutting edge. It's super relevant. It is modern. It is meaningful. It's education. It's entertainment. It is learning in the most contextualized, culturally rich environment you can possibly think of, with a lot of resources for teachers, students, and families alike. I don't think there's anything out there with this level of. I'm really sorry. I don't know what happened with this level, as I was saying, with this level of language-rich environments, interactivity, and very responsible use of technology. This is what I wanted to share with you. I hope this was helpful. We have a team that is more than ready and willing to show you more about English Academy Plus Junior. Thank you, Anai, very much. And thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to me. It was really, really nice to count on your presence and to talk a little bit about a project that we are so proud of. We really hope that you will explore this a little bit more and help us develop English Academy Plus Junior even further. Something that we love at Everybody Loves Languages is hearing your feedback and learning from our users how we can, with the power of technology, continue to develop and create great solutions and improve the solutions that we already have. So this is really a great partnership. So we look forward to having you as one of our partners for this. Thank you very much, Celia. Thank you. So I say goodbye to you. My name is Vinny Nobre, as I mentioned, and I would love to talk to you if you want to know more about English Academy Junior, if you have questions, if you want to try it out, stay in touch with us. Have a fantastic Tuesday, everyone, and a lovely week, and I'll see you around. On behalf of Everybody Loves Languages, thank you for your presence. Yes, Sergio, if I can help you, of course. Just let me know your question, and I'll be more than happy to help you. You're trying, okay? Well, Serge, I don't know if you've been able to ask your question or if you're writing it, but you can also get in touch with our team, our sales team, and ask your question, or maybe send us an email. I don't see your question coming up to me. I'm sorry. I've checked the Q&A and I've looked at the chat. I don't really see the question there. Well, Sergio, please feel free to get in touch with us and send us an email. Um, oh, that's okay. It's because it's a webinar, so the microphone is not enabled. You would have to type your question. Okay. No problem. If it's a longer question and you need to contextualize it, no, my pleasure. You can write to us. You've got Sergio, who is in our sales team. You can send him a question. You've got his email there as well. And then this will give you time maybe to contextualize it a little bit more. I understand that it's probably a more complete question, right? So please send it to us. You've got Sergio's email there. We'll be more than happy to answer any of your questions. All right, everyone. So thank you very much. Thanks for being here. I wish you all a happy Tuesday, and I hope you all use English Academy Plus Junior. We would love to hear from you. Goodbye, everyone.